local people, important issues. CBS 10 WILM's weekly focus on the Lower Cape Fear region. This is Byline Wilmington with your host, Don Ansell.
Welcome and good morning. Well, today we're talking about autism with some alarming new statistics about the disorder. Have added some fuel to an already, or to issues already surrounding this controversial disorder. Our guests today are both involved. Amanda McCulloch has a daughter who was diagnosed with a form of autism at the age of, I think you said,
2 years old.
2 years, 2 months, right? And Dr. Ruth Hurst is a specialist who has worked in the field for nearly 3 decades. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us here.
So your daughter Katie was diagnosed at 2 years, 2 months.
And 29 days.
You said
never forget.
You never forget
never
that.
Forget that piece of paper with the diagnosis written on it and the date and the feeling of just...
What were you seeing that raised some red flags to you?
Well, there had been some uneasiness around her eye contact. It wasn't there. The fact that she had kept to certain markers of development during her first year, and that she lost some of those in her second year.
So you were really, really attuned.
I was, and I was, grateful because I had people around me that work in this field who was saying, Amanda, she should be putting 2 words together by now. She should be socializing by now.
And see, if somebody said that to my daughter, she would say, he'll do
well,
it.
exactly.
And in his own time,
yeah,
don't
people
push.
People said that. You wait till she goes to school. Einstein didn't talk till he was 4. She'll grow out of it. But yet there were other things. She'd pick up objects and start staring at them and taking them round to this side and then just leaving them there and staring, and then, the other way around. Or she'd pick up objects and put them in a row. And if you dared pick one away, then she'd give you some attention. She would be really upset. So there were, things like that just didn't make sense. And then the last straw, I think, was when I was in church, and this little boy was just staring at me, just goo-goo gaga at me. And Katie never did that. Would never sit still on anybody's lap, let alone look at them.
So there were some red flags. So you took her to, and we're going to talk about how the diagnosis takes place, and Dr. Hurst in just a minute. But you took her to what? A specialist?
The Child Development Services Agency. The CDSA here in Wilmington were magnificent. They were very sensitive, and then after the diagnosis, well.
What was your reaction? Did you believe it? Did you say that, oh, that's what it is?
I had sort of prepared myself. However, that sense of the rug being pulled from under your feet and this whole of your stomach and its lining just taken away for a week or more, I was just concussion.
Devastated?
Really. Totally devastated.
And
what do you do next?
You're right. Did they?
Now what?
Did they lay out?
They probably did, but I wasn't in any state to hear anything at that point.
So let's move back a little bit to Dr. Hurst, Ruth. What is autism?
Autism is many of the things that Amanda's just said. It's a social communication disorder, and it's really diagnosed based upon behavior. We do know it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, but there's no test, there's no medical test that we can do.
Neuromedical, that means it's
neurodevelopmental.
There's a physical aspect to development that is not the norm?
Yes, yes. Now, exactly what that is, there are many theories, and different people are tracking down different aspects of that, but so at this point right now, when we diagnose autism, which, as Amanda says, is a devastating diagnosis, we do that based on what we see the child do, and based on reports from parents and other caregivers who know the child well.
All right. You said it's a
developmental.
Is that different than a mental disorder?
Well, that's a good question.
It's a fine line, I guess.
Typically, we would talk about autism as a disorder that's diagnosed in childhood. And there are other disorders that are considered neurodevelopmental or have that aspect to them. For example, schizophrenia, and even some of the disorders, mood disorders, where there have been we have some ability to see that there are brain problems or brain function problems at the same time that behavioral problems are occurring. But autism is, while it's a spectrum disorder, it's still different than these other disorders that I just mentioned, in that the essential feature is this problem with social cognition. And along with that, as you might imagine, if we don't connect well with other people, we're not able to communicate well.
So it sounds like it can be difficult to diagnose?
Yes, and this is one of the, again, I think Amanda is a wonderful role model for people, because she went to people who had background and expertise in the field to get some help. And one of the things, for example, that we recommend is that when people suspect this in their children, that they try to go find people who are able to do testing or assessment that has some validity to it, like standardized testing, checklists, questionnaires that help to make clear what the picture, the diagnostic picture is.
Did you feel guilty?
I don't know that I felt...
Did you feel responsible?
I did. I did feel that it was because of my age, for example. I was an older mother, and there had been...
We're going to talk about that, because I found that the incidence of autism increases with a woman's age.
Exactly. That is I would say a myth that's out there, but the original diagnosis came with the refrigerator mum label. That was the origination of it, caused by refrigerator mothers.
Wait, define that, refrigerator mother.
Well, that a mother was just so cold, she didn't bond with her child.
So they did put it on...
They put it on the mother right at the very beginning. Last year, we actually had fathers being too old.
Really?
Yeah. So last year, actually, there was some suggestion that aging fathers were the causation. This year, I think we're back to aging mothers again. You know, that's all very well.
The cause du jour.
But I mean, I know so many very, very young mums who have children where the first has autism, but the next ones are fine. So it's...
Well, and I just want to add here as well is that with this notion of the refrigerator mother, the early treatments for autism around, well, at the time that came out, was to put the parents or the mother into therapy.
Okay, we're going to, let me hold it there. When we come back, we're going to talk about actually what does cause autism. Stay with us, we'll be right back.